How did you find out that there was Iranian influence within?
Because a lot of the Shia anti-Saddam militias, they are from SCIRI, Supreme Council for Islamic Revolution in Iraq. And we had a couple like area study books, because this is, the internet's still pretty primitive at that time. And you could just read the history of these groups, and their armed wing was the Badr Corps. And these are the guys that fought against Saddam. They fought against Iraq during the Iraq-Iran war. That's why they were technically anti-Saddam. And so, me being a 23-year-old E5, I'm like, surely somebody knows that these guys are like pro-Iran, which also hates us. There's got to be a reason why they're here. Somebody above me must have a master plan, and I'm just going to do my deal, but it wasn't until, because before we did Fallujah in November, we went to Najaf in 2004, and we damn near had a mutiny. Then we had all of our Shia guys realize we were down in Najaf, and these guys were completely okay when we were hitting the Sunni mosques in Baghdad or hitting the Sunni mosques in Anbar, but they realized pretty quick that we were actually in Najaf to go after the Imam Ali shrine, because Sadr had held up in there. Muqtada al-Sadr and his militia had basically strong pointed the most sacred mosque in all Shia Islam, and we're on the outskirts, and basically our Shia guys figured that out, and they were on the verge of running a coup against us. Probably would have been a fairly significant, green on blue type of incident. Luckily, our Kurds that were there, because they spoke the language, they were like, this is about ready to go down. And so we actually had to subtract a lot from our fighting force, because we put a lot of those guys.
Hold on. How many of these guys are there?
This was probably like 25% of our fighting force. So per company, we probably had about 25, 30 of them, or that had some degree of ties. Some of them were full-on card-carrying members of Badr Corps, of SCIRI. Other ones were a little bit more subtle about it, but their loyalty was definitely to Shia Iraqis and not anybody else.
How do you handle that?
Well, at the time, we just had to get weapons away from those guys. And then once we got back to Baghdad, we fired quite a bit of them. There was a few of them that said, hey, I want to stay working with you guys, that hadn't violated that trust that we kept. But that was basically, honestly, it was a test. When we would go after, and this is why the Kurds were the guys we could trust the most, because obviously we weren't going after any Kurdish targets, but it was always a roll of the dice. Like if we were going after an al-Qaeda in Iraq target, we had to take a look at, who are our Sunni guys. We had to know our guys. We had to say, okay, who are the Sunni dudes here, and how do they feel about al-Qaeda? Or even moreover, more politically sensitive, how do these guys feel about the Ba'ath Party? Because we were still at the time going after some Ba'ath Party members. And that's where really the geopolitics kind of hit us in the face, because I'd gone from just being focused on literally my sector of fire, when we're doing direct action, to having to know Iraqi politics down to this level. And especially when we started talking to a lot of the Sunni guys, the Sunni Iraqis, they were just like, hey, you guys Bremer firing the entire Ba'ath Party, that's creating an insurgency right now. That's happening. And I know my team leader and us guys at the lower level, we are sending that, back up and saying, hey, this is probably a bad idea, but obviously fell on deaf ears, and, the rest is kind of history, unfortunately.
Wow. How would those guys take it when you would secure their weapons?
We did it hard and fast. We did it really fast. And I think a lot of them were eager to not be associated with us anymore, because that summer there of 2004, that's when everything against Sadr really kicked up. So whether we were down in Najaf or whether we were out in Sadr City, we were going after some pretty senior ranking members of the Sadr's clergy, but then also just members of the Shia community. And so that switched pretty quickly, almost overnight, that we really couldn't trust a lot of those guys.